We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We. What is up, Watch Fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Watch Shop.
I am Michael. This video is sponsored by Headphonescom.
Oh, baby.
I know.
I love these headphones. Talk more about them later.
Yes.
Today we're talking about Rolex. Again, classic.
I will say before you even get into anything, the title is hype. We are taking not an aggressive scare you or entice you stance.
Yeah.
We are just going to tell you what we think and tie in Rolex's gray market and everything like that.
Yes. Obviously, we know that Rolex is now offering secondhand watches in boutiques and probably going to be in boutiques worldwide. They've already offered them in Switzerland, in Bucharest. They offered a white Panda Daytona for $65,000.
Dude, did your heart sink? I felt like I have this movie that I'm writing. It's taking a very long time, but I don't want to say the ending, but basically when everything finally ends and someone's very like, oh, I can finally relax, they see that like the horror has just begun. Yeah, that's what I felt with when I saw the price on Bucharest. I was like,
completely. It's so
we'll get into it.
One of the interesting things I've been thinking about was, obviously I'm not a Rolex client. I own a couple of Rolexes, but they're all most of them are vintage, and one of them is modern, 2014 GMT, but it's not from an AD. I didn't go to an AD and buy it. So I'm not a new Rolex client for a couple of reasons. I don't want to play the game, and the reason I don't play the game isn't because I'm better than the game, but I generally am adverse to lines. I don't really wait on lines very often. If I'm craving ice cream, I go to my ice cream parlor and there's a line, I leave. I'm not interested in it.
I could see Sally loving that.
Sally hates it.
I know.
Sally will wait on that fucking line for an hour.
Because Sally's very patient. So
because Sally will say, let's make waiting on the line a journey. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Go to sleep hungry.
There's also two people in line.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not really a line guy. And then I don't know. I also felt like if I go to an AD and I get a watch, and what if I do want to sell it at some point? What if it's not something that I want to keep permanently? What do I do with it?
You're in
now
trouble.
I'm an asshole. For a lot of reasons, I didn't go and do it.
Yes.
I even wanted to get a green dial Rolex Oyster Perpetual in 36 millimeters. And,
for my birthday present.
And an AD called me in Texas. It was like 6 months ago. And he was like, hey, I got you the watch. And I said, oh, fantastic. Great. He goes, just come down and pick it up. And I was like, I'm not flying to Texas.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Not doing it.
You could have offered me $500. I would have done it. Made a video about it.
Really?
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, I never would have done that. I just, I get on a
Isn't
flight.
that funny?
Yeah, it is funny.
Yeah, a ton of fun.
But that would have been fun. Why didn't we do that?
Missed opportunity.
But anyway, it's not my thing. I also would not spend gray market prices, and particularly not Rolex gray market prices, on watches.
Oh my God!
I'm not a Daytona guy, but let's even say a day date that I really, really like. I love day dates, right? Yeah. So a day date that is $40,000, I would not spend $50,000 or $60,000 on. I just would not do it.
It's also, when a gray dealer does it, it's like, okay, you're a jerk. You're kind of, you're swinging me around. When it like goes through Rolex and then gets spit back out at that price, I'm like, wait a minute. Now I don't like the entirety of all of you, which we'll delve into more.
I am perfectly fine with knowing that I'll never own a particular watch, or I will not own a particular watch for the foreseeable future. I'm okay with that. Yeah. That's life, right? Yeah. I will never own a Cézanne, but I'm just very happy they exist. Right? That's it's a painting. The peaches.
Oh,
so that's
you love the peaches.
That's how I feel.
I also do want to toss in. There's always questions in the comments about this particular thing. We're obviously looking at I can look at the market through my computer. You are getting text from dealers
all the time.
Live. So if this website says this watch is going for 30, sure, that website says that, and that website hasn't been updated.
Me for 18.
Exactly. Yes. That is specifically why we do these videos. You are constantly getting blown up with real prices, not website. Try to get everybody to buy this watch before the market crashes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And while I would never do any of that gray market stuff, and I've never bought anything gray market, I then say to myself, wait, I always fly United. Yep. It is, even though it's more expensive. I always fly, I'm 1K, right? I pay a lot of money every year to have preference and special treatment through an airline.
Yeah.
Why is it any different with Rolex? Why would I?
This is your opinion on waiting list or gray market?
Particularly buying from Rolex CPO.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's
I would never buy Rolex CPO, right?
Of course.
But why do I do it? Why do I do it with plain? Right? I suppose I look at it like with the plane, I have to fly anyway, so I might as well fly with status.
It's more of a necessity.
It's not just a flex, right?
It's also, I feel like, a slightly different. The whole refurbished thing, I don't know how you can equate that to planes, but there'd be something that's a little less.
Listen, I fly, first class plenty. It's not that good.
It's
not that good.
They took me on my first ever first class flight, and I was like, this is the same as my seat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only time that it's really great, in my opinion, is if you want to just conk the out and you've got the cabin seat, and I'm talking about like United first class. So if you're talking about like United Arab Emirates or something like that, it's totally different ball game. Of course. Apparently, it's like you have a shower. I don't know about that.
Yeah, right.
I'm talking about regular people, whatever. There is definitely a psychological element here that is not just necessity and being preferred.
Yes.
There is a psychological thing. When I don't sit in a premier position on an airplane, which is rare, but when I don't, I definitely do feel a little bit like anxious about it. I definitely do feel you've seen that.
Yeah,
I felt like I'm sitting back here. Like, what? Why am I sitting back here? Flight was booked last minute or whatever the it was. And
some girl's asking to use your charger. You're like, I'm going to die.
I'm gonna die.
You sitting next to a girl that was like, "Can I use your charger?" And you're like, "I don't have one."
I don't have one.
We have an Android charger, right? You're like,
yeah, I don't have one either.
Yeah, I'm like, you need to stop talking to me.
Yeah,
you take mine.
So my point is, like, I definitely understand. Like, while I criticize people who like clout chase through Rolex because you get jerked off and you spend a lot of money, I also am self-aware enough to know that I do a similar thing. I don't think it's exactly the same, but it's a similar thing elsewhere. When it comes to the security of buying a watch CPO through Rolex,
yes,
you can equate it to cars, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a more accurate explanation is really, where else do we find people spending stupid money on ordinary watches that you can get from another dealer at a fraction through the auction house?
This video is sponsored by Headphonescom. They got the domain. That's my slogan for them. They got the domain.
They got the domain. Yeah.
Yes.
They sent us over these Focal Batiste about 2 months ago for you, about a month ago for me.
Yes.
And they are absolutely phenomenal. Manufactured, at least on the exterior, of aluminum and magnesium. They are cold to the touch in a very it's almost like when you just lift a Rolex like this. It's like
ooh, chilly.
Yep, this makes sense.
Yes.
This makes sense.
The drivers on the inside are also made by Focal in France.
Phenomenal.
Which I feel like is just not a country of origin that you hear of very often.
Well, it's again. I think it's very similar to Davidoff cigars being from Switzerland. Certain things are just places or maybe unknown hubs of quality in their respective industry. If you want to buy a mass market brand that everyone knows about, oftentimes you're paying for a hell of a lot more. Big premium.
Well, that's the thing here. These are not cheap headphones, but when you fully utilize them and with the quality that they deliver, it's worth the price.
Completely.
100%. We are two different use cases, and they flow between what we do in life perfectly.
I'm a casual, I'm not an audiophile, but I am a casual user of high quality audio equipment, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's travel. Yes, in my home, I like to listen and have good sound, but there aren't people. I live alone, right? But when I am traveling, it is imperative for me, if I want to be productive and happy and comfortable and prepared when I land, I need to be in my own world. I need to be on an island, right, basically.
Yep.
And the noise canceling feature here is fantastic. Not only does it totally block out everyone else that's around me, but also just the sound is completely just immersive. Just fantastic high quality.
And the best part is that I use these, obviously, for that, but I also will use the USB-C port at the bottom, plug it into my computer. There is a DAC on board these headphones, so I'll get the loudest, clearest sound that I can get when I'm editing. And the nice part about that balanced sound is that you can get other headphones that will be really high in the bass end or something like that, because some people like their headphones to be thumping or something like that. When I'm editing, I can't have that because then I'm going to make everything wrong. I'll put the bass too low or something like that. The edit will seem lackluster. That's why I really like that these have punch on both ends, but they are also balanced. They're not too much of one thing. Besides that, though, the fact that I can use these headphones to edit and have them plugged in with no latency if I'm editing on Bluetooth.
Incredibly rare.
And then take them outside and have them be great is fantastic. They also have noise cancellation, a soft mode and an aggressive mode, and a transparent mode so you can hear what's going on outside, which is fantastic. They're 350 grams, like Christian said, aluminum on the outside of the drivers, magnesium on the actual headphone part, so they're super light. They don't cause ear fatigue. And they're great. They come with a great case, and they are warranted with Headphonescom's warranty of a 365-day return.
That's a company that stands behind their product. That's how confident they are in it. I highly recommend anyone that's interested in high-quality items like watches to invest in other high-quality items to fill their life with. That's how I feel about basically everything, right?
Yeah.
So venturing into headphones, into audio is, for me, it's a no-brainer. I highly recommend you guys go over to Headphones.com and take a look at these focals and their entire selection because it is extensive.
Yeah, whether you're looking for something for $500 or $5,000, Headphones.com has you absolutely covered.
So head on over and thank you to Headphones.com for the message. Auction houses don't just sell piece unique watches you can't buy elsewhere. Auction houses will sell a watch. You can go on Chrono 24,
watches, right?
People and they'll pay $20,000 more, $30,000 more because they trust Sotheby's. So these people do exist out there.
Oh, we've met people who money has been a forgotten word for 50 years.
It's just like a cousin of mine used to say, it is just numbers on paper.
Yep.
It doesn't actually mean
fake.
anything.
It's fake. It's like when you watch Succession and you keep waiting for something to go wrong financially when he's like, you could have 100 million, you could have 50 million, and you're like, oh, right, nothing's going to go wrong.
Right.
That's not the plot.
Right.
That's how people are.
Wrong doesn't mean what we think wrong means.
Exactly.
It's just, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So anyway, that's what's going on with the Rolex world, and I think that Rolex will do very well, even with overpricing these watches. I think they'll do just fine.
If anything, these ADs are getting their watches back, and people are like, oh, well, that's great. At least I went to Rolex. Now I understand why I have to pay $70,000 for it.
I think another tremendous value add here is Rolex is centralizing their data system so they'll know their clients better.
Yeah.
Rolex, like we talked about in our last video, Rolex will have a rewards kind of system where you get allocated a watch if you did trade-ins, if you bought CPO.
Sure.
That's going to happen. If you bought a watch that is maybe undesirable, right?
Yep.
And plus you
bought any Cellini.
Yeah, you bought any Cellini.
If you buy any Cellini, you get one watch with your purchase.
Exactly. That being said, also think about it from a data collection, standpoint of having a list of people all around the world that will spend $65,000 on a Daytona they could buy for $22,000 from anywhere else. That is a very valuable list of people.
Yes.
That's a list of people in a certain level of not only money, but even just like psyche.
Yep.
Like those people are thinking about things a certain way, and that list is very valuable.
Yes.
Now, will Rolex sell that list? Nah, I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
But that they will leverage that list for something.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what's going on in the Rolex, in the actual Rolex company world.
In the mansion.
But
yes.
now what will be the effect on everyone else? And even independent of that, what is going on in the greater Rolex market?
And even when we look at things, and this is a very brief sidetrack, but we just did a video about the Kasparov. You said it's just plummeting.
A watch that was once,
Kasparov.
basically $50,000, $45,000 is now, I was offered one yesterday for $30,000 in blue and $27,000 in white. Those are significant drops in prices. I did not think we would get this low, and obviously, because today is only, we're 2 weeks before Christmas right now.
You have the little Santa rally coming.
And I think that there's going to be a significant sell-off, even after Christmas, Q1, Q2. I'm not a financial expert by any means.
But typically.
Well, not only just typically, but look at everyone is saying that next year is going to even be worse financially, that we're really in a lot of trouble in the global economy.
This is like a Masterworks sponsorship.
Right. Yeah, I know. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like people are going to be dumping watches.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be dumping watches.
Yeah.
So if you have cash, then it's going to be interesting. Obviously, you should invest that cash.
Yes.
But it's not the most irresponsible thing to maybe buy yourself a watch on the cheap.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I will certainly do it.
Yeah.
Because something you want, something that you feel kind of good that you got it at a silly price, at the depression price, and that's kind of nice.
It's great.
I look at this as an opportunity, So that's
how you get rich.
That's right. I mean,
I mean, not with
this is how you
bosses,
get a
but
good one. Right. It's how you get rich with real estate and other things like that. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the post-Christmas dip?
I think it's going to be very, very, very real. I think, what's interesting is now we're seeing on the macroeconomic world, we're seeing things kind of not recover, but kind of slow and maybe show a little promise. But we now have that wave of like, okay, well, all of this stuff takes a lot of time to happen. And even if everything stopped now, all that other stuff that you were doing is now starting to roll down the hill.
Yep.
And I think, like, exactly what you said, because we've talked about it before. If I'm like, oh, I'm looking at this watch, you're like, you got to wait till after the holidays.
Yeah.
I think that's very true, because I think even if numbers are good, everybody that was waiting to, and this is, again, larger, everybody that was like, well, we'll do our layoffs after Christmas because it's still coming, is going to happen. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, this is $10,000 that needs to go immediately.
Yeah. And it's not just on an individual level with one watch, but I know of people, particularly in the tech world. First of all, talk about the tech world for a second. And I know that you, I don't know if we've talked about this so much, but you had exposure to it through some of your former colleagues. But I know I've had a lot of exposure through it through the watch industry, and a lot of their clients were these tech guys that were not only being, overpaid quite a bit,
right?
And now, and you realize we thought they were being overpaid then, but now they're realizing it because the offers they're getting are far lower. I mean, I know multiple people that were making, 300, 350 that are having a hard time getting a job above 175. You know,
yeah.
Not to mention they were working 2 jobs because no one was checking.
Right.
But now, the culture of Silicon Valley has been bizarre with all these layoffs. Facebook fired thousands of people. Twitter obviously fired thousands of people. And
the important part is these people are people, like you've said in the past, that are like, well, I have 6 Daytonas in the safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People with 6 Daytonas and 2 Nautiluses that they bought at $85,000 or $95,000. And what's their pain tolerance? At what point do they say, I got to dump this?
I lost my job. My pay's cut in half. I have 6 of the same watch in the safe.
And what the who did they buy it from? How are they going to get their money back? The guys, whoever they bought it from is going to say, I'll sell it for you. They're not going to take that inventory.
No.
They're not taking it.
No.
So I'll sell it for you. And then what's your dump number?
Right.
What's the auto sell number? It's really scary and really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to the question. I was never in that business. I was never on that end of the business.
Right.
So it's going to be wild, because as soon as that volume is dumped, you on an individual level, you're just gone. Because you don't matter. You're one Daytona, or the individual owners. I don't even think they represent a significant portion of the market enough to influence the price. If they hold, I don't think it'll change anything.
Right.
I think it's the people that own dozens. If you upload, 35 Daytonas under 20 grand on Chrono 24. The market's over. It's done.
Oh my God! One person can do it too.
One person can do it.
Yeah,
there are people that own 5 Daytonas, 8 Daytonas.
Well, because if I see a Daytona for, I don't know, say I see one for 18 grand, I'm not paying anything over 18 grand. There was one right there. I'm not gonna. Even if someone bought it, I'm like, are you kidding?
Not to mention now 18. Now you're like, what the fuck? There's real blood in the water. This is scary.
You let your watch go for 18 grand?
Exactly. And again, keep in mind, guys, the people post on Instagram tables of these things. They own 40, they own 50, and those are dealers, right? Dealers that put hundreds of thousands of dollars in this inventory, and it's fucking crazy.
We've said one dealer could smash the market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It even happened, with I was watching a video not that long ago on one of those car channels, and it was about how many dealerships across the country basically had to close only even because of the G-Wagon, because they were so over leveraged in their inventory on G-Wagons. And they were flipping not only to consumers but dealer to dealer, and they actually had to close their dealerships because how much they lost.
2022 has been the year of over leveraging.
Completely.
Crypto. There's Celsius, Binance halted withdrawals on USDC, but there's Celsius, FTX, Genesis, all these people just halted.
Exactly.
And it's because, obviously, financial stuff has been kind of going insane. Anything that's not regulated and is booming, will most likely have a bank run at some point, or their own version of a bank run.
Right.
Which their bank run for the watches can literally be from one guy.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in the Rolex world. Obviously, on the individual level, the pre-owned level, the gray market. As a consumer, I keep your eyes open. I don't think there's anything wrong with waiting for a really good deal and buying it. I also think that things, stabilization levels are different than the low. Obviously, I think that if you've got a watch that you've wanted for a while, you refuse to pay the big gray market price. Let's say it's a Daytona, or let's say it's a host of a bunch of other watches.
Sure.
Keep your eyes open and maybe pounce. I mean, you don't need to buy at rock bottom. It's the same thing with stocks, right?
Yeah.
You're never gonna sell at the highest high and buy at the lowest low.
Right.
But if you think you're buying at a good price and making an educated decision, that's great. Now on the Rolex business level, that's crazy. I think they invested over $1 billion in a new facility. Fucking crazy to think about.
They're good to go.
$1 billion isn't even a real number to them. They just
we just need a new facility.
Got a new facility.
It costs what it costs.
It's crazy to think about it.
Yeah.
So the Rolex world is fucking nuts. Nuts.
And
So.
the CPO program not putting a cap on prices just to me signals that even Rolex is like we're not ramping anything up. So just let them fly, guys.
Yeah.
Like we're not changing anything.
We're not changing anything. So I think that it's wild. Obviously, the watch market is different than the hype watch market.
I was about to say
the watch market itself has been kind of stable and the same. The vintage watch market it never skyrocketed. I mean, forget about the super expensive. I'm talking about the normal under $15,000. They never really skyrocketed. They never really benefited that much from COVID.
Like dividend funds, really.
Yeah, that was it. They kind of just they increase incrementally, and it's fine, it's modest, and they always do well, and that's really it. Datejust have always done well. Simple Cartiers have always done well. The super rare stuff skyrocketed. Cartier crashes skyrocketed. They may take a crash eventually, but they skyrocketed. But when it comes to normal vintage watches, they're just doing well. That's why I wasn't afraid at all when all this happened. That's why I never bought into the crazy big stuff. I just didn't have the risk tolerance. I just didn't have it. So, what are you going to do? But, shop vintage watches in the Theo and Harris watch shop, that's for sure, because obviously, again, the proof is in the pudding. They never skyrocketed and they never plummeted. The value has always been there. The value will continue to be there. I'm wearing a watch that's a little expensive at the moment, but generally speaking, I'm wearing a watch that's under $10,000. That usually around $5,000. That just represents a ton of value. While the rest of the world is going nuts over hype, value is value.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Finding a honeycomb dial Omega Seamaster, is a remarkable watch, and we're talking around $3,000. It's just insane.
Yeah, truly.
An insane piece of 1950s history. A Cartier Tank Louis under $10,000 is a phenomenal watch. You're never going to lose money on. And it's not about making money, but it's about.
But these swings make anybody be like, well,
you don't want to get taken either.
Yeah, right.
So,
anybody that buys a $7,000 Rolex at retail, and then someone's like, "Yo, your watch is worth $45,000." It's like,
what?
Why am I in the market now?
Right.
You can't, unless you have a ton of money. You're like, should I get rid of it or should I keep it?
Exactly. So that's it. That's our entire kind of State of the Union on Rolex.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Let us know what you think.
You ever get the call in your Datejust?
No. God no.
God no. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, and get the hell out of here. Go buy a Rolex.